어깨도 이 건이랑 끼고
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm delighted to extend a warm welcome to each one of you on behalf of Team Avatar and my Avatar to Diversity Mahotsav 2023. My name is Beena Menon, and I'm your host for this evening. As we start, here are a few hygiene checks for a seamless virtual experience. Please close all other applications on your computer and log out from your organization's VPN to conserve internet bandwidth. We would like to thank our partners, powered by partner Kellogg Brown and Root Engineering and Construction India Private Limited, supporting partners Genesis and EPAN Systems India Private Limited, and our outreach partner NCTI, Madras Chamber of Commerce and Industries. Our social media hashtags are hashtag Diversity Mahotsav, hashtag Celebrating Diversity. Do post your experience at Diversity Mahotsav on your SM handles with the hashtags. I would like to inform you that all the Diversity Mahotsav episodes are being live streamed on your YouTube channel. You can watch the Diversity Mahotsav live on YouTube. Click on the link that is pasted on the chat window. Welcome to this workshop on analytics as a career choice. In today's data driven world, the field of analytics has become increasingly vital across various industries. This session is designed to provide you with valuable insights into the exciting and dynamic realm of analytics, exploring the reasons why it makes for a compelling career choice. Our experienced speaker will share his expertise discussing the current landscape of analytics, key skills required, and the impact it has on business decision making. Let us discover why analytics is not just a career choice, but a pathway to unlocking innovation, solving complex problems, and shaping the future. Our speaker today, Mr. Bhanukumar, Vice President, ESG and Information Services of that group, is a technologist with close to 3 decades of hands-on experience in technology related to cloud infrastructure, automatic identification and data capture, AIDC, and analytics, currently focusing on giving back to society. He has a robust experience around identifying and implementing the right technical solution for any requirement with appropriate due diligence, risk assessment, solution design, and implementation. He has built multiple technology centers of excellence, facilitating career progression for individuals and effective solution for the organization. A passionate trainer, mentor, and coach with more than 5,000 hours of training and still ticking. Bhanukumar handles anything and everything around technology at Avtar. It's over to you, Bhanukumar.
Thanks, Meena. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Good evening, everyone. So, the session, as Meena was indicating, we are looking at analytics as a career choice. So, I hope my screen is visible now. I've shared my screen. So, what I propose to cover in today's session is primarily going to be around what is analytics, what are the opportunities. Now, we seem to be talking a lot about analytics. So, is it a real thing or is there anything which is a hype? What is it? And then we'll talk about what does it look like in the world of analytics? What do they do and all that? And then I will quickly get into how does one succeed if they want to be in analytics, and what is it that they need to prepare themselves up? What are the skills and all that that is required if they really want to get into it? During the session, a couple of things that I will definitely address is more in terms of, does it mean if I need to get into analytics, should I be a technical guy, or can I be non-technical and move into analytics is one that I will get into. The skills that are required, how do I go about preparing myself to move into the skill? Can it be for fresher? Can it be for experienced? So all of it is something that we will talk about as we go by in today's session. The focus primarily is not towards giving anything and everything out, but the focus is more towards trying to position analytics as a career and what is the skill that we will need. That's what I'm proposing to cover probably in the next 35-40 minutes. Should any of you have any questions as you come by, I know people can tend to forget. You can just type it out in the Q&A box that you see. I will respond to it as appropriate, either when it comes to the relevant logical place where I could probably relate it, or at the end of the session, I will respond to those questions. Please add, as and when you get your questions, add it into your Q&A. Okay, with that said, I will get into the specifics. Now, is analytics something which can swallow as many people as they come in? Is it really a big career push that comes in for people? Is what I am trying to showcase here. Now, I've given statistics from multiple sources here, basically to tell you that yes, analytics is here to stay. For example, if we really look at it, the global market on data analytics is expected to exceed 100 billion this year. This year, as in 2023, we are almost fag end. It is more or less crossed, is what is the statistic saying, but the exact numbers will come out later. But it is expected to cross 100 billion. That's the volume of business we are talking about only in data analytics. The other thing that if you really look at it is, a lot of people say, if I start involving myself into proper analysis and get into the data collections and all the relevant aspects around it, the decision making is speeded up. They are talking about at least 5 times faster than what it used to be without analytics. 2022, if you really look at it, US alone, there was a shortage of 250,000 people on data analytics skill. The demand actually is growing 50% annually. The demand is growing 50% annually, which means at this moment, more the merrier. And on the organization side, 70% of the firms are actually considering data visualization to be very crucial because they feel it demystifies the complex data and enables faster decisioning. The other interesting factor why analytics is here to stay is because we are talking about roughly 180 zettabytes of data being generated by 2025. Sometime in May 2012, this statistics was talking about 5 exabytes of data from the dawn of civilization till then. But now we are talking about 180 zettabytes of data. So the volume is increasing phenomenally, and this is bound to increase. Again, one more statistics which I have not put in here, but indicating it is bound to increase because the number of connected devices per person way back in 2015 was somewhere around 1.5. It is expected to reach 10 per person next year. So with more and more connected devices, it only means we will have more data into the data universe, that is the global network, internet and all that, which will mean this is going to increase further. The other interesting piece, on one side, I said 70% of the firms are considering data visualization crucial. The other side is the small businesses are underutilizing. Statistics says almost 60 to 73% of its data is not used at all, which means analytics practitioners can go down and then start talking about it and make them get into the specifics. The complex analytics, that is what I mean here by composite data analytics professional, that is person who's multifaceted within the data analytics. We'll talk about what it is as we go by. There is an increase by 31% by 2030. So this is where we are talking about niche analytics space, pure technical people who have been into the analytics, experienced in analytics, trying to get into the niche area. So this kind of statistics gives you a perspective saying there is quite a bit that talks about, that says analytics is here to say. I've already given data up to 2030 and more because we are saying this is going to increase. And 250,000 people shortage in US alone last year, global data can still be a bigger number. So there is so much that we could probably get into. So with that said, how does it look like if somebody is into analytics space or somebody wants to get into analytics space? How does it look like? Typically, if you really look at it, we are now digitally transformed all over and things are going and all that. Let's take just 4 pillars in any organization. On one side, you have the customers and the employees. The other side, we have the organization, the products and the operation aspect. That is, we are talking about the day-to-day operational stuff that we are moving on. Now, with this here, if you really look at it, each of these are providing different types of data. Each of these pillars, be it the customers or the employees or the products or operations, are providing different types of data. And each of these are to be captured by us so that we will probably be able to make decisions. So the kind of data that comes in, if you really look at it, customer signals come in because what does he like, what does he not like, those kinds of things come in, which enables us to get into a deeper relationship with the customer. From an employee perspective, there is a lot that comes in. employee engagement is critical in any organization. So there are a lot of employee signals that come in, which helps us to get closer to the employee, which means we will have more effective employee relationship, which will make more efficient employees. From a product perspective, what I mean by product telemetry is the product data that comes in. We keep capturing the data, what is going right, what is not going right. There are issues and that could probably be raised as a ticket, so on and so forth. So all of it is going to help one build the product into a better platform, better levels. So it improves the product capabilities. Lastly, the organization operations. This is something which is oft looked at whenever we talk about reduction, cost reduction. Cost has gone into now a cost optimization. So we are trying to take all the operational data and we are trying to make operations more efficient. So the essence is we capture the various data signals that come and see all the one that gets into the data intelligence, and we build on the intelligence so that we are able to improve the business outcomes. And that intelligence is what is showcased to the stakeholders as various visuals, as various action items and all that. So this in entirety is done by a analytics person. I would probably call it as done by the analytics team because there are a lot of other intricate things that comes in. But long story short, the key aspect is when you're into analytics or when somebody is into the analytics space, we get into doing each of these, primarily capturing the data, connecting the dots so that we build on the intelligence, and then we take measures to improve the business outcomes. This is the essence of analytics, which means analytics is actually the process of transforming the data into actions and the insights based on the context of the organization's decision making and problem solving needs. Because the key factor for success of an analytics team in any organization is for them to understand the organization needs. On the top tower, I've given 3 examples like predictive analytics for patient care. Today, the healthcare has advanced to such a level that we are able to get into a prediction based on a lot of tests. And in fact, there are these geriatric care centers and all that where they've also started capturing data from various devices on an ongoing basis so that they are able to manage the elderly people in terms of their day-to-day needs. The customer behavior analysis in retail, this is the biggest thing. Now, I'm not even going online. We go into a more supermarket, we go into a Nilgiris. When we get into the billing counter, the first question asked is, what is your mobile number? We don't bat an eyelid, but we provide the mobile number. And if he doesn't ask, sometimes we even fight with them. Sometimes if our number is not there, we start thinking about our spouse number, kids number. We try to give one thing or the other. Why? Because we feel there is some value that comes out of it. So that's from our side as a customer. But as a retailer, he uses this to understand how frequently we visit those shops, what are the type of goods that we purchase from those shops, because that is going to help him stock things better, help him plan his inventory better. A lot of the related aspects in terms of selling, procurement and everything comes in. In fact, logistics supply chain, they are using it big time to build the route optimization, what we call as the right route, efficiently managed with a reduction in cost. Now, this also has a bearing in terms of the overall pollution to carbonization to everything. So people have started looking at this as a big ticket item in terms of the analytics, which means, like, for example, one of the leading logistics firm, they are having a real-time setup monitoring wherein they are able to indicate if a transported goods are caught somewhere, they will be able to figure out which is the nearest warehouse from where a new vehicle can be sent so that the shipment is not delayed. So we have gone to such a level of online monitoring that will enable us to understand the bigger picture in terms of how we are able to achieve things. So typically, this is what we do as analysts. From an organization perspective, it helps them to get a 360-degree view of consumer. That's why I gave that example of phone number. They will be able to understand the kind of billing per visit, understand the kind of products that we buy, the timelines when we come in, so on and so forth. There is also this up and cross selling. What I mean there is related selling. They could probably say, you have been buying this, so why not you get into this? Or you've always been buying this brand. So this brand has now come in with the additional product which you may like. Why don't you get into it? And market basket analysis is a typical marketing technique where when I buy probably a cereal, I would need probably a milk or maybe a soya milk or an almond milk. So those are grouped together. So they do that analysis itself is a big venture, and that will pave way in terms of managing the sale much better in the real life scenario. And where do they get all this from? We talk about the customer preferences, likes, dislikes going into the social media. That's a default for us. Whatever we have, we experience, we start talking about it in the social media. So people are there to capture all that information, understand our mood, sentiment, and all that, based on which they try to do it. They are based on these aspects. They also try to get into a scenario where they will minimize on people moving away from them. Basically, what they are talking about moving away from them is there might be multiple supermarkets in the same street, but I want them to come only to Nilgiris and not to the competitor more or something. So those are some of the analysis that they will get into. And with people walking in and out and we providing the mobile phones and all that, we have this customer experience. Now, consciously, I gave a physical visit example. If in a physical visit we can do so much, there is a lot more that we could probably do in a integrated IT environment or the digitally transformed environment. So that's where it is. So this is typically what happens for an analyst, or if somebody gets into the analytics role per se, this is what you will get. So far, I've just given you the perspective in terms of, yes, analytics is here to stay. Analytics is something that people are looking at as a critical function for the success of business. There is a shortage of people. Skilled people are required. So we are expected to look out for people. So there is an opportunity. That's one thing that we are talking about. The other thing I also did was trying to give you a perspective of how an analyst works, or what does it look like for an analytics. Now, what does this mean? If you can put in the chat box in terms of your understanding here quickly in terms of now as an analyst, do you think you will take it? Do you think you have a challenge, or is there anything that is hitting you hard in terms of when we talk about these? Anything that comes, any reflections that you can put on the chat box? The biggest reflecting factor should be it's all numbers. The biggest reflecting factor that you should keep in mind is it is all numbers. Yes, numbers are mind-boggling. So it's all numbers, but the bigger thing that I want you to also look at is the numbers are provided by us as consumers, and we as data analysts start processing those. So we have this unique experience of being on both sides. If you are in the analytics world, you know how to capture the data and you know how to, like, for example, I being in this analytics field, a few years back when I wanted to buy a EV two-wheeler, I went in and they were talking about now this is all connected. You will be able to understand the speed. You will be able to understand the distance traveled and all that. I said, hold on, boss, all that is fine. But where is the data stored? What else are you using the data for? Are you going to track in terms of where all I can leave, where all I go? What are the timings that I go for you to look at? So the biggest factor which I'll be talking about as we go by is we need to start relating these aspects together so that we are able to do it. And that's where the can I part of it comes in. All of us can, if you are able to relate the numbers and then take the bigger picture. Again, a classic example, FASTag. FASTag came in. We are all using FASTag for the toll and all that. While all of us said, yes, it is digitization. So we are minimizing on the cash transactions. We are safeguarding a lot of other intricate details, while I don't want to get into that, as an analyst, where do you look at it? First and foremost, let's say you anyway have a speed limit on the highways, and all of us know none of us follow the speed limits. But between two tolls, based on the distance and the speed limit, you know this is going to take 1 hour. And if somebody drives down in 40 minutes, you charge them slightly higher as a speeding fine. They won't even recognize because it's all automatically debited. But you're making a reference to the speed and adding the fine automatically. In fact, one startup has taken this FASTag usage and they have tied up with petrol stations wherein people can use FASTag to pay for their petrol, diesel, whatever. So the factor that I'm trying to drive is, as on one side, yes, numbers are mind-boggling. The other side that one needs to look at is these numbers can tell a lot about people. And we need to have that mindset if we really want to get into this career. That's the most important factor that one needs to look at. Now, having given you the perspective, I'm just getting into a drill down in terms of how this happens. Within an organization, how does it happen? Now, within an organization, if you really look at it, if I want to do an analysis, let's say optimize the operational cost, I first need to have the kind of data that I want, which tells me what are all the various operational costs, when is it being spent, where all is it being spent, who is responsible for it, and is it all planned, unplanned, so many other things. So the first and foremost step is I need to collect the data. Now, when I collect the data within an organization, what we call as in terms of the private data, the accuracy of the data, the integrity of the data is at a higher level. Now, let's say, for example, you are tracking the flood situations, South Tamil Nadu that's happening and all that. There is so much of information that is available on the internet. Some of it is true, some of it is false, because some people like to add more fuel into the fire for no reasons. So we get into a lot more. So in such cases, I might have to cleanse the data, because when I take inappropriate data for decisioning, my decisions are not going to be appropriate. So I need to be very clear in saying I will pick only those which are relevant for my operations. So that's where, after I collect the data, I clean the data. Post which I try to understand whether the data is all good and all that. And then build in terms of what does the data say? How do I use it for my prediction? So build on the prediction. The model deployment is slightly beyond prediction, wherein you apply, you predict, and there are a lot of other intricate details in terms of models that come in. Basically talking about how is the data behaving and how do you expect it to behave. Very simply put, when you watch the cricket matches, be it T20, one day or whatever, you say the current run rate and projected run rate. If it is with the current, projected score based on the current run rate, if the run rate is A, B, or C. So those are model-based predictions that happen. So this is the entire gamut of activities that happens within a data analytics space. But this gets done by different types of people. Typically, data engineers are the ones who work on collection and cleaning. Analysts are the one who works on cleaning and exploratory data. The machine learning engineers are the ones who work on model deployment, model building, and everything. A data scientist is probably a jack of all of these. Now, the reason why I'm breaking it this way is because until this green box, exploratory data analytics, the opportunity is for both technical and non-technical resources. Anybody can survive in this industry. When it comes to model building, model deployment, there is some amount of technical requirement that one needs to start working on. They might have to work on Python, they may have to work on R, they may have to start working on some of the modeling techniques, write codes to arrive at those modeling techniques and take on from there. So that's kind of a technical aspect. These three can be done by a non-technical or a technical guy. That's why I say scope for both technical and non-technical resources exists. And that's one big reason why analytics space is something that a lot of people try to enter into, because it keeps us accepting more and more people because there is clarity in terms of where technical aspect is required, where it is not required. So it makes life simpler. So that's the essence in terms of the data science per se. And where do people work on it? They work on multiple ways. Basically, they are providing value. And the more the value, obviously, the difficulty level is going to be a little more complex. And that's where a lot more of technology will be used. A lot of these traditional analytics is something that probably anybody can get into. You don't necessarily need a technical acumen. Here is where you start off, where the overlap comes in, wherein there is a non-technical portion to it which people can work on, but beyond this, you must be technical. Now, the way I've given it is you have an information based on which you try to build the insight and then provide the foresight. Now, an analogy to it is typically what happens when we visit a doctor. Doctor starts asking a set of questions, looks at certain parameters. Basically, he's asking us to describe what has happened. So we start telling him this is what is happening, this is what is happening, and we start telling them. And then they start questioning more in terms of specifics. So they diagnose. They try to keep in mind a couple of possible causes, and then they try to diagnose by asking further questions, based on which they predict what could be the illness and give us a prescription. So initially, when we describe, that's what they use the data to understand what has happened. So that's your descriptive analytics. Then they diagnose based on what they get into. That's your diagnostic analytics. And then based on that, they try to put two and two together and say, probably this is the cause for your illness. So that's the prediction. And finally, they write the prescription. In fact, it's called prescription because they are prescribing something. And that's where the prescriptive analytics comes in. That mirrored into the business side is where you talk about what happened, why did it happen, based on which you say what will happen next. And it's gone beyond wherein you say, how can we make it happen? If it's maybe 2.5 decades back, when we do a sales analysis, if a sales was bad for a particular product in a particular region, we will try to figure out why and we'll say, let's see how it can improve. We'll probably change the target to an extent so that we manage. But today, no, it has to be on par with the other regions. So these are the things that you will do. You start prescribing what you need to do so that you will be able to achieve. So that's the essence of analytics that we are into. So this in entirety happens based on these steps: collection, cleaning, exploratory data analysis, model building, and model deployment. So model is built here, and then I start predicting it, based on which I will prescribe. Now, for prescription, I need to predict. For prediction, I need to diagnose. For diagnose, I need to know the description. So they go hand in glove. And that's why I say this is something where both technical and non-technical resources can thrive. Now, I'm putting in some logos where they have surveyed based on analytics. The biggest one, all of us know Amazon. Now, why do I say they have surveyed on analytics? You log in probably to buy a charging cable for your mobile, and after 3-4 minutes of browsing, you will start feeling ashamed that you have an old mobile. So you will finally buy a new mobile rather than buying a charging cable for the existing mobile. So that is because they bring in the concept of I know the customer. So they are trying to analyze based on, you may also like, people who bought this also bought. So they start analyzing based on your past experiences, based on experiences of people who are in similar age group, similar geographies, so on and so forth. Same thing with YouTube. You watch multiple videos, multiple subscribed videos, unsubscribed videos. You start getting the feed based on what you see, number one. Number two, when you're watching the videos, if you're on the unpaid mode, free mode, you get ads. If two people sit next to each other and watch the same video, still the ad breaks will not be same for both of you. And more importantly, the ads will not be the same for both of you. That is based on individuals' browsing pattern, individuals' likes and dislikes. Again, they get into I know my customer. And Google, I don't have to tell anything at all. All of us know. You don't even go to Google. Go to Book My Show and book a ticket. Half an hour before your movie time, your Google will give you a message saying, you had booked a ticket. Do you want to book a cab? So we have gone to that level. That's the reality. And all of it is possible because A, I have the data. I'm more than data. I have a data which is more accurate. That is, I've cleansed it. I have done an exploration in terms of what is happening, how is it happening, so that I'm able to build the model and deploy and move on. This is the essence of analytics. And anybody wanting to get into this field will probably be in one or more of any of these aspects that they get into. So primarily, the role is in terms of data manipulation, data collection, data manipulation, data readiness, what we call as the data wrangling in the technical terms. So that's primarily where it gets into, using which the next step comes in terms of modeling. So you'll try to understand what it is and then take it forward. So primarily, this is what is the job that comes in. So if that is the case, what are the skills required? I know some people can think twice now because of my first skill. Yes, you will need statistics. Proficiency in statistics is a mandatory requirement if somebody needs to be in analytics space, because out and out, you're running on numbers. It's just not numbers. You start collating those numbers, identify if this is decreasing, should that not increase? If that is increasing, this should also increase. Why is there this contra not taken care of? So you start analyzing it to that level on one side. On the other side, you start modeling. Modeling primarily is your statistical calculus aspects and all that. So while I've said stats, theoretically, there are three aspects of mathematics that comes in, assuming stats is part of maths. One is the statistics itself that consumes roughly around 60 to 70% of the need. The balance, 30 to 40% goes in terms of your mindset on managing calculus, the way you try to approach the calculus and all that, because that's another piece where you're trying to apply the models. The third angle is your modeling itself. What is modeling? How does it work? So on and so forth. So all of it is there. And the other thing that I'm also talking about in terms of analytics is your ability to interpret the data. So we are talking about meaningful conclusions coming in based on the data that we look at. It's very simple. It's not something extraordinary person to get into and all that. Last time when I went to this place, it took longer than anticipated. So this time I'll start early is a basic example of analyzing things. So that's a mindset that we need to have. Then we must necessarily have some, see, the top 6 I've consciously put in the non-technical aspects. There are some technical skills that are available, which I'll come into as we go by. The second one is your problem solving. So basically, I need to understand the problem. Now, that's the biggest piece. An organization implements analytics either because they want to improve on something or they have a challenge that they want to overcome. These are the two scenarios where it comes in. So I must necessarily understand the problem and I need to know how to approach that. So the complexity can vary, which means the kind of data I need, the kind of collection mechanisms. And sometimes when I go in for data collection, I realize they don't even have the data for capturing. So how do we get it? So we get into all those scenarios. And sometimes we might have to be innovative to ensure the data comes to you. The third angle, which is very, very critical in analytics, is if I don't know the business, I will not be able to analyze, because they say there is a problem I want to improve. I need to know how to approach that based on the business domain. So it is very important that once I have the business process and understanding, then the analysis can align to the business strategy. And that is where the customization happens relevant to the organization. Until then, the analysis and all that is common across any type of analytical requirement. But the actual customization happens only when we start putting in the strategy or what happened and why we need to change. Obviously, we need to be able to communicate well on that because we are building insights based on data. This is where again, the other buzzword, the data storytelling comes in. I need to be able to build the story and weave the story out based on the data that comes in. Then I also need to be able to question everything that comes in, the assumptions, the arguments. We need to evaluate all of it because is it really correct? Because based on that, you're making decisions. So the decision cannot be wrong. So if your assumption is wrong, your output is wrong, which means your decision is also wrong. That needs to be managed. And that leads us into the detailing that we get into, the attention to detail. I will not be able to question the assumptions or evaluate the arguments unless and until I have the attention to detail. I need to have the precision in terms of what we need. Now, other than that, for experience resources, we need to understand project management capabilities. The second thing is all of us should need to know the ethical aspects around it and data privacy. Now, that's very important because there is so much of data. The same example that I talked about, we get into a Nilgiri store, we give our mobile number. Abroad, two friends wanting to share their mobile numbers itself is not normal. I ask the mobile number of my friend, he or she will think twice before giving it to me. So that's exactly how they handle the privacy, and this is how we handle our privacy. So we need to be wary about it and we need to know how to manage it. But the biggest aspect is this is an evolving field. So we must necessarily be ready to learn and adapt, failing which it's going to be difficult. While all of these are the behavioral skills, those of us who are technical and want to be in the technical line, it is required that we understand the machine learning and advanced analytics related programming skills around Python or R, something around database like SQL, and familiarity around some big data platforms like Hadoop, Spark, and all that will also help. Additionally, for everybody, primarily to the non-technical, but yes, also to the technical, is data visualization tool is important. There are multiple data visualization tools like Power BI, Tableau, Click. These are the top three in that line. But more importantly, while those are add-ons, nice to haves, everyone wanting to be in analytics field must necessarily know Excel. It is not the talk. I'm not talking about the basic Excels, but Excel itself allows you to do a lot of analysis. So we will have to really understand the aspects around that also. So these are some of the technical, non-technical skills that we will need. Having said that, how do I get myself ready? Now that I understand all this and I've come to an understanding and say that, okay, we will get into it. So how do I get myself ready for it? Very simple. You need to make the decisions. We need to answer the questions around where do we want to go? Why are we moving into analytics as a career? Are we ready and fully convinced that we can get in? Only then we will be able to succeed. So it's really, really important that you introspect in terms of what we are, where we want to go, how we want to do it, because that is what is going to help us out in terms of making a decision. Because unless and until one is fully convinced, it's going to be very difficult to migrate into that space. Be it a fresher or an experienced person, it is very difficult. Once we are clear in terms of it, what happens is we need to now position ourselves in terms of what is it that we need to know. So we need to now start building on the skills. I did give a lot of skills. So we need to start building on some of these skills. So typically, if I'm probably in a technology side, I'll start from where I left. If I'm totally new, I will try to pick on some skills. So it's important that we pick on the skills, the domain that we want to. As I said, the business acumen is important. So it's really important that we understand which domain we want to get into, the industry domain. And look for the opportunities around us, around each of us, because there is so much that's available on the internet. We need to see what is it and what out of those are liked by us. So typically when I mentor people, I talk about they're looking at multiple JDs, trying to pick on those skills which are common so that they will be able to pick it and then learn on it to take on. So those are some of the things that one needs to look at. And then we need to prepare. So having looked at the opportunities and all that, I decide on a few companies, I decide on a few roles. It doesn't stop there. I cannot go to the company for interview just like that. Yes, there is an opportunity, so I've been called. I need to know what that company is all about. And I need to be able to say, because remember, unlike a typical interview in an analytics role interview, the expectation is you will be able to state something which is more analytical. Now, for example, if I'm getting into organization A, I might probably look at what they are into. I will look at their industry domain. What is the problem in their typical problem or this thing in their industry domain that we need to look at? So we will start picking on those. So we can probably say, typically, in a logistics, transport and logistics, the problem is in terms of routing. So here is what you could do. This is how. So The point that we are trying to bring about here is we are trying to state, yes, I understand, I have that critical thinking, innovative ideas that I can build in. So we need to prepare ourselves in terms of it. And most importantly, the key point that we need to talk about is it's just not that I know Python, I know this thing, but we talk about how can I reach the right audience? How can I get it? So those are some of the things, the way I project myself. What do you do? Well, I'm an analyst versus I help in doing this. So that's a message that we need to, subtle message that we need to start driving around in terms of positioning it. So these are some of the mandatory things that one needs to keep in mind when we decide in terms of moving into it. So on one side, I've given the technology skills, I've given the roles in terms of what we want. On the other side, this is the preparation that one has to do, and it doesn't stop there. The biggest thing is, I know I did rattle out to quite a few skills which are non-technical, but I'm specifically focusing on some of the soft skills because these are expected to be available in an analyst for him to succeed. One is, I need to be curious and inquisitive. I should not look at any data just like that and leave it. Anything has a meaning into it. So start dwelling deep into the data related aspects, get into it and try to speak to the data, interact with the data. Now, what do I mean by interact with the data? Try to understand what is being depicted out of it. How was this data related? How are we able to take it forward? So all of these will have to be considered when we are trying to look for the information. The second angle is junior level, senior level does not matter. We need to start thinking strategically. The point here is we need to understand the bigger picture so that we are able to align the outcomes with the broader business goals, which means strategy matters. So your data storytelling will involve the strategic thinking in terms of what is inferred out of the data and how do you align it to the organization goals so that the stakeholders will be able to better understand. This is very important. It's an evolving field. So things are evolving. There are a lot of new technologies coming in. There is a business scenario change that happens. The companies get acquired, companies acquire, companies suddenly go into loss for various business scenarios. So there are a lot of things. So we need to be able to align to all of it so that we are able to get into the specifics. So the adaptability and flexibility is very, very important. For example, I said top three tools, Power BI, Tableau, and ClickView. Sometime back when I was talking about data visualization. Tableau has been in the field of analytics for the last at least 2.5, 3 decades. Power BI came in the last decade, but number one is Power BI. The difference is in terms of how they are looking at the analytical aspects, how they are taking, but that's not where I'm coming into. The point is, a lot of organizations are moving towards Power BI. So I need to be ready with Tableau or Power BI so that I'll be able to get it. So the point is, new tools keep evolving. We'll have to get into those space. This is very important, ethical aspect. See, when we are working on this kind of a data, there is a lot of sensitive information that we work on. Let's say healthcare. I work on so much of confidential information, what we call as the patient health information, PHI. So there is so much of care that we need to take when we work on these kinds of info because that can never ever be leaked out. So the number one. Number two, you can't even discuss about it. See, leaking out is more from a security angle, but am I allowed to discuss is where the ethical aspect comes in because theoretically, this is private to that particular person. His health issue is private to that particular person, and it is up to that person to decide whom they are going to share it with and whom they will not share with. So it's because we do this role, we get that data. That does not mean that we use it for or against them. So the ethical aspect is very, very important when we're working on, because I know a lot of instances where because of that ethical judgment missing, some people had been let go because they were not taking care of the security angle or the privacy angle and all that. So those are things that we need to manage. The other factor is related to the sensitivity, because sometimes it's sensitive information. Not always will we get the right kind of data in the first go. And more importantly, sometimes the complexity of the data may not be understandable by us. So there is a lot of trial and error that we get into. This is all the more from a technology team perspective, because when they try to do the models, they generally don't get satisfied with one model. They build at least 4 or 5 models, apply them, test it out, and then figure out which is the best out of it, and then come out with the projections. So there is a lot that we need to be patient about. Patience and perseverance matters a lot. Again, evolving field, I need to have a continuous learning mindset. I need to continue to learn, self-improve. So at any time, we cannot say, I know it all, because every minute there is a change that's coming in. So there is something that I do not know. So every time when I get into it, it is really important that I continue to learn, absorb, and then adapt. Then this is a bigger piece. You don't get data on your own. If you're working on some secondary data, maybe or published data, you can probably take it. But primarily, when you're working in an organization, you interact with a lot of people to get the data, work on it. So you need to be able to capture it, because not always, as I said, will you be able to get the data on the first go. When I talked about patience, perseverance, I did say that. So what matters is I need to gel with everybody. I need to work in as a team so that I'm able to collaborate, build on it to take it forward in terms of how I get into the specifics. So it's really, really important for us to get into the specifics on how the analytics space can help me succeed. So the only way it will help you succeed is you need to collaborate, because you're talking with multiple people. And that means there are multiple instances. Oh my God, he has come again asking for data. This kind of a data, how do you expect me to start entering? Is there a way wherein it will come automatically? I don't have to enter all of these. So you get into a lot of these things. But it is not a criticism, but it is more a lesson learned for you. That is why I said you need to have a continuous learning mindset. So if you're able to do that, it's not easy for us to move on. So the key aspects is, on one side, the technical aspects, the behavioral, the other related aspects that we talked about. The other side is, these are some of it that most of what I have given here should be should be in your blood. It should be part of your day-to-day work culture, that you are able to get it, because it should not look out like it's something beyond what I can. So the point that I'm trying to drive is, if you are not here and still wanting to get into the analytics space, build your capability on these aspects. If by chance you are someone who's not patient, start looking at how to build on your patience, because sooner you build on it, the better it is. Because I'm not saying don't get into analytics. You get into the analytics field, but if you don't have it, you will automatically get ejected out. So it's important that you need to manage it. So these skills should be imbibed for you to get on. Now, the last bit is, having come this far, now how do I sustain it? I've decided, yes, analytics is my area. I know I can handle it and all that. So where do you start? First thing is, tap into your own network, because the persons who know us, they will trust us. They are our advocates. They are the ones who are going to talk for us. So there are instances where we might not have spoken to them for long. There are instances where we talk to them every day. Use both sides. If you have not spoken to them for long, reconnect with them. Talk to them about this. Socialize with them and tell them this is what you're going to do. This is where it is. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that you go to every Tom, Dick, and Harry and talk about it. You will automatically know these are the people who will help me. These are the people who can mentor me. These are the people who will guide me. So connect with those kinds of people, or reconnect with those kinds of people. Socialize the idea. Get your things ready. Then, based on the people whom you are connected and you know they are for you, build on to their network so that you are able to position your capabilities. Like, anytime and every time when I'm trying to shift in these kinds of career shift, where I'm moving from one field to another, 60 to 70%, statistics say 60 to 70% of the time, it's a known person who has connected you and has enabled you to shift career into a new lineup. So it's really, really important that we position our capabilities and see how we can help each other. Now, the bigger thing that you need to remember is, if you don't have those kinds of advocates, you're starting cold. which means you need to spend that extra effort to make them look at you. It could probably be when you talk to them, build in on those elevator pitch, or consistently connect with them, or get into your LinkedIn portfolios and all that. Start writing blogs or whatever so that people look at you. But if you have all, if it is someone who's connecting you with other people, it makes your life more easy because the introduction is done. You've broken the ice, so you're all set. So always look for people who will help you out. Right? This pretty much covers what I wanted to do as part of the session. What I did was started off with saying why people are moving towards analytics as a career option, then talked about what happens if I need to get into analytics, in the sense, what do they do? What do these business analysts and others do? So I tried to give you a perspective in terms of it, and then moved on in terms of trying to talk about the skills, and then finally talked about how do you ready yourself. This pretty much summarizes what I wanted to cover for the session. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take it.
So I think you have more or less covered most of the doubts or most of the points that a person who is already in the field of analytics need to know, and also somebody who want to transition into the analytics line need to keep in mind. But just one question that has just come in. Spoke about continuous learning in analytics field, and but what are some recommended sources for it? The sources for it.
Recommended sources for continuous learning, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there are multiple ways in which we can probably do it. The biggest source is our own workload, basically, because we learn a lot when we try to work on those aspects. That's on one side. The other side is there are a lot of these blogs that are available, which is like your Medium, KG Nuggets and all that, where it is primarily more in terms of analytics that one could probably look at. Other than that, if you really want a formal learning mechanism, then of course you have your Coursera's and the other open online course, this thing which are available, where you could probably look at. Now, Analytics Vidya towards data science, KD Nuggets are lovely blogs which talk a lot about analytics. Then you probably have Coursera's and upgrades and great learnings of the world, which will probably give you a formal learning. If you're looking at a professional certification, then you have Google Analytics Academy, Microsoft certified courses and all that, which could probably help out. There are a few university programs also in some of those places. And there are quite a few books that can also get into it. Now, typically, the books will depend based on where you want to get into. Like if I want to know statistics, there is a book called Naked Statistics, which gives you the details on how one can get into data and all that. So you could get into those kinds of aspects so that we can get on. So long story short, the best way is learn on the job. The second best way is to follow some of these bloggers in Analytics Vidya, KD Nuggets, towards data science and all these places.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't think there's any other questions that has come up in the question box. So let's go ahead with the conclusion. So as we conclude this enlightening session on analytics as a career choice, we would like to express our gratitude to the participants for joining in today. Reflect on the insights shared by our esteemed speaker, the diverse applications of analytics, and the essential skills required to thrive in this field. Whether you are a student taking your first steps, a professional considering a transition, or an individual intrigued by the potential of data, remember that analytics is more than just a career choice. It's a journey of continuous learning and innovation. Stay curious, keep sharpening your skills, and leverage the power of data to drive meaningful change. Thank you so much, Banu. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for your captivating session today. Your expertise has enriched our understanding, and your insights have left a lasting impact. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and making the session truly enriching. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Diversity Mahotsav is special because of all of you. I would once again like to thank our partners, powered by partner Kellogg's Brown and Root Engineering and Construction India Private Limited, and supporting partner Genesis and EPAM, and our outreach partner NCCI, Madras Chamber of Commerce and Industries. Our social media hashtags are hashtag Diversity Mahotsav, hashtag Celebrating Diversity. Do post your experience at Diversity Mahotsav on your SM handles with the hashtags. On behalf of Team Avtar, I thank each one of you and welcome you to the next 3 days of the Diversity Mahotsav. Please remember, Diversity Mahotsav is between 1st to 22nd only December on weekdays between 4 and 5 p.m. As we draw close to the day, I'm going to request you to take a couple of minutes and provide your feedback on today's session. I request my colleague to bring up the poll, please. How would you rate today's session on a scale of 1:5, 1 being the minimum and 5 being the maximum? How would you rate our speakers session on a scale of 1:5, 1 being the minimum and 5 being the maximum? Is there anything else you wish the session covered in today's topic? Would you like to suggest a topic that you wish to hear from us during Diversity Mahotsav? If yes, please give your suggestion in the text box. What is your takeaway from today's session? I would like to give a couple of minutes to give you all the opportunity to participate in the poll. Meanwhile, we have a couple of exciting sessions planned for you for the next couple of days. December 20th, tomorrow, we have a panel discussion with Faculty of Educational Institutions on the topic Intentional Inclusion, Creating an Actionable Charter to Practice and Promote Inclusion at Education Institutions. The panelists are Dr. Ranjana Varghese, Associate Dean, Xavier Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship, Rupashri Baral, Professor, HR and Organizational Behavior, Advisor, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, Department of Management Studies, IIT Madras, Dr. Padmaja V, Professor and Head, Center of Leadership at Ramaya Institute of Management. And the session will be moderated by Dr. Shabana KM, Senior Manager, Research of Avtar Group. And December 21st, that's day after tomorrow, we have the Diversethon. Diversethon is a dedicated paper presentation event for educational institutions to present original papers on various topics in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion in education institutions. We have received many institutions' applications and who will be taking part in this event day after. Diversethon is scheduled to be held on 21st December 2023 between 4 and 5 p.m. Please do join us and make it a huge success. Please visit www.myavtar.com to explore various opportunities and activities that celebrate diversity. If you have not registered at myavtar.com as yet, do log on to myavtar.com and register now. Browse through to find jobs that might suit your skill set, read articles of interest, upskill yourself through various webinars conducted exclusively for you. Signing off today is Veena Menon. Take care, stay safe, and have a wonderful evening.